The following episode is based on publicly available sources and is intended for educational purposes only. It includes details of violence and may not be suitable for all listeners. Discretion is advised. He was the Blade Runner, a global symbol of hope, a man who defied the odds and inspired millions. But on Valentine's Day, 2013, Oscar Pistorius picked up a gun, and moments later, his life and the life of Reeva Steenkamp would be forever shattered. In every crime, there's the story you hear and the truth buried beneath it. You're listening to The Case Room, where we dive deep into true crime stories from around the world, one case at a time. Episode 1. Oscar Pistorius, The Fall of a Hero. The tragic death of Reeva Steenkamp. Before we open today's case, please note that this episode discusses sensitive themes, including intimate partner violence and murder. Some listeners may find this content distressing. Listener discretion is advised. It's Valentine's Day, 2013. Pretoria, South Africa, lies quiet under the cloak of darkness. Most people sleep peacefully, unaware that in one luxury home, a tragedy is about to unfold. A tragedy that would captivate the world, tear down an international hero, and forever change two families. That night, the life of a vibrant young woman named Reeva Steenkamp would abruptly end, and the reputation of Oscar Pistorius, South Africa's iconic Blade Runner, would shatter into pieces. Chapter 1. The Rise of a Hero. Oscar Leonard Carl Pistorius was born on November 22, 1986, in Sandton, Johannesburg, South Africa. From the very beginning, his life was marked by extraordinary challenges. Born without fibulae in both legs, a condition known as fibular hemimelia. His parents made the heart-wrenching decision to have both of his legs amputated below the knee when he was just 11 months old. Despite this early adversity, Oscar's childhood was filled with energy and determination. He attended Constantia Kloof Primary School and later Pretoria Boys High School, where he actively participated in various sports, including rugby, water polo and wrestling. His mother, Sheila Pistorius, played a pivotal role in instilling confidence and resilience in him. She famously told him, "You are not disabled by the disabilities you have, you are able by the abilities you have." In June 2003, at the age of 16, Oscar suffered a serious knee injury while playing rugby. During his rehabilitation, he began running as part of his recovery process. This marked the beginning of his sprinting career. He was fitted with his first pair of carbon fibre prosthetic blades, known as flex-foot cheetahs, which were designed for sprinting. These blades would become synonymous with his identity as an athlete. Oscar's athletic prowess quickly became evident. In 2004, he competed in the Athens Paralympic Games, winning gold in the 200 metres and bronze in the 100 metres. His success on the track challenged perceptions of disability and athleticism, earning him the nickname Blade Runner. Determined to compete against able-bodied athletes, Oscar faced numerous challenges and controversies. In 2007, the International Association of Athletics Federations ruled that his prosthetic limbs gave him an unfair advantage, effectively banning him from competing in able-bodied events. However, Oscar appealed the decision, and in 2008, the Court of Arbitration for Sport overturned the ban, allowing him to compete. Oscar's dream of competing in the Olympics became a reality in 2012 when he qualified for the London Games. He became the first double amputee to compete in the Olympics, participating in the 400 metres and the 4x400 metre relay. His presence on the Olympic track was a historic moment, symbolising the breaking of barriers and redefining what was possible for athletes with disabilities. Beyond his athletic achievements, Oscar became a global icon, inspiring millions with his story of perseverance and determination. He received numerous accolades and endorsements, becoming a symbol of triumph over adversity. However, as the world would later learn, his life off the track was fraught with complexities and turmoil. Oscar Pistorius's rise to fame was a testament to human resilience and the pursuit of excellence. His journey from a young boy with a disability to an Olympic athlete captivated the world, setting the stage for a narrative that would later take a tragic turn. Chapter 2. Reeva Steenkamp, A Life Cut Short. Reeva Rebecca Steenkamp was born on August 19, 1983, in Cape Town, South Africa, to Barry Steenkamp, a horse trainer, and June Steenkamp, originally from Blackburn, England. She grew up in Port Elizabeth, where she attended St Dominic's Priory School. Reeva was known for her intelligence, warmth and determination from a young age. She pursued higher education at the University of Port Elizabeth, which later became part of Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, earning a Bachelor of Laws degree in 2005. Reeva began her modelling career at the age of 14. Her striking features and charisma led her to become the face of Avon Cosmetics in South Africa and appear in various television commercials for brands like Toyota and Clover Industries. Despite her success in modelling, Reeva remained passionate about the legal field and worked as a paralegal, aiming to be admitted to the bar. Reeva was deeply committed to social justice, particularly advocating against domestic violence. She used her growing public platform to raise awareness about the issue, becoming a voice for those affected. Tragically, on the day she was killed, Reeva was scheduled to speak at a school about domestic abuse, highlighting her dedication to the cause. Her untimely death on February 14, 2013, at the hands of her boyfriend, Oscar Pistorius, shocked the nation and the world. Reeva's legacy continues through the Reeva Rebecca Steenkamp Foundation, established by her mother June, to educate and empower women and children against violence and abuse. Reeva Steenkamp's life was a blend of beauty, intellect and compassion. Her story serves as a poignant reminder of the pervasive issue of domestic violence and the importance of advocacy and justice. Chapter 3. The Investigation. February 14, 2013, 3:20 a.m. A haunting silence is pierced by a panicked call to security at the Silver Woods Country Estate in Pretoria. Oscar Pistorius, the international track star known for defying the odds, has just shot his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp. 4 bullets, 3 of them hitting their target, fired through a locked bathroom door. Police arrive minutes later to a scene drenched in confusion and blood. Reeva's body is lying at the bottom of the staircase, covered in towels, her head cradled in Oscar's lap. Medics declare her dead at the scene. She has wounds to her head, arm and hip. Her skull was shattered. Oscar is visibly shaken, weeping, clinging to her body. But it's not long before those tears turn into questions. Questions that will consume the world for years to come. The South African Police Service quickly secure the crime scene, but almost immediately there are concerns about how well that scene is preserved. Initial reports later reveal that officers allegedly handled key pieces of evidence without gloves. A vital mistake in a case this high profile. What is clear, though, is this. Reeva was in the bathroom, behind a locked door. Oscar shot through that door 4 times, hitting her with 3 hollow-point rounds. The door itself is wooden, splintered by the force of the bullets. Oscar claims he thought an intruder had broken into his home and was hiding in the bathroom, but the questions begin to pile up. If he thought an intruder had broken in, why didn't he check to see if Reeva was still in bed beside him? Why shoot without warning? Why not call the police first, especially in a high-security estate? And perhaps most critically, why were Reeva's cell phones found in the bathroom with her? Police begin compiling a profile of Oscar Pistorius that is a far cry from his public image. This is no longer just a beloved Olympic sprinter. This is a man who kept multiple firearms, including a 9mm parabellum pistol, the weapon that killed Reeva. They uncover that he had discharged a firearm in public on more than one occasion. once through the sunroof of a car after an argument with a police officer. Another time, a gun he was handling went off in a busy restaurant. The bullet narrowly missed a patron's foot. They also find WhatsApp messages on Reeva's phone. One, sent just a few weeks before her death, reads, "I'm scared of you sometimes, of how you snap at me." Reeva wrote that she loved Oscar, but felt like she was being picked on and attacked. The message paints a chilling picture of a relationship plagued by possessiveness, insecurity, and tension. One that starkly contradicts the glamorous image seen in the media. Security guards at the estate testify that Oscar called them after the shooting, crying. He said he thought it was an intruder. But one neighbour later tells investigators that she heard a woman's screams followed by gunshots, a sequence that would support the prosecution's narrative that this was no accident. Ballistic evidence is analysed. Investigators determine that Oscar was standing roughly 1.5 metres from the door when he fired. They also note the angle and grouping of the shots, tight and deliberate, indicating that he wasn't firing blindly, but targeting. The bathroom door is removed and preserved as a critical exhibit. Blood splatter analysis, the trajectory of bullets, and the marks from Oscar allegedly breaking down the door with a cricket bat are all catalogued. It's forensic work that will form the foundation of both the defence and the prosecution in the trial to come. As the investigation deepens, so does the media frenzy. News vans line the street outside Oscar's home. International headlines explode with every new detail. The Blade Runner, once seen as a miracle of modern sport, is now shackled in the back of a police van. Oscar is charged with murder just one day after the shooting. His initial court appearance is chaotic, packed with reporters, cameras, and a nation desperate for answers. He sobs as the charges are read. His legal team argues that this was a terrible, tragic misunderstanding. Prosecutors believe otherwise. South African law does not distinguish between murder based on motive and murder based on reckless conduct. If Oscar had no intention to kill Reeva specifically, but did intend to shoot and kill who he believed to be an intruder, that still constitutes murder under the law. The Pistorius mansion is no longer a home. It's a crime scene. And South Africa, a nation still grappling with crime, violence, and inequality, finds itself at the centre of one of the most gripping legal dramas in its history. The investigation concludes with the prosecution alleging that Oscar knew Reeva was in the bathroom, that they had fought earlier in the evening, that she had tried to escape the confrontation by locking herself in, and that he, fueled by rage, shot her through the door. The defence clings to the story of a frightened man reacting to what he believed was a real threat. Only one thing is certain. Someone would have to decide who to believe. And soon the eyes of the world would turn to the courtroom, waiting to see what would happen next. Chapter 4. The Trial. March 3rd, 2014. The High Court in Pretoria buzzed with anticipation. Cameras flashed, reporters jostled for position, and the world watched as Oscar Pistorius, once a symbol of triumph over adversity, stood trial for the murder of Reeva Steenkamp. Judge Thokozile Masipa presided over the case, flanked by two assessors. South Africa's legal system does not employ juries. Instead, judges determine guilt or innocence. The courtroom became a theatre of emotion, evidence, and legal strategy. The prosecution, led by Jerry Nell, painted a picture of a volatile relationship marred by jealousy and anger. Nell argued that Pistorius intentionally shot Steenkamp after a heated argument, aiming to kill. The defence, headed by Barry Rue, contended that Pistorius mistook Steenkamp for an intruder, acting out of fear rather than malice. Witnesses took the stand, their testimonies weaving a complex narrative. Neighbours testified to hearing screams and gunshots in the early hours of Valentine's Day, 2013. One neighbour described blood-curdling screams, followed by a series of bangs. The prosecution suggested these were the sounds of a domestic dispute turned deadly. Pistorius's own testimony was a focal point. He described waking in the night, hearing a noise in the bathroom and believing an intruder had entered. In a state of panic, he claimed to have fired 4 shots through the locked door, only to discover he had killed Steenkamp. His account was emotional, at times inconsistent, and subjected to intense cross-examination. The court also examined Pistorius's history with firearms. Incidents of negligent discharges and a fascination with guns were highlighted, casting doubt on his judgment and temperament. After months of testimony, the trial concluded on August 8, 2014. The nation held its breath as Judge Masipa prepared to deliver her verdict. On September 12, 2014, Judge Masipa found Pistorius not guilty of premeditated murder, but guilty of culpable homicide, akin to manslaughter. She stated that the prosecution had failed to prove intent beyond a reasonable doubt. The verdict sparked widespread debate. Some saw it as a miscarriage of justice, others as a measured application of the law. The sentencing, scheduled for October 13, 2014, would be the next chapter in this tragic saga. Chapter 5. The Verdict and Sentencing. September 12, 2014. The courtroom is silent. Oscar Pistorius sits alone in the dock, his face pale, his head bowed. Judge Thokozile Masipa prepares to deliver a verdict that will be heard across the world. After months of intense testimony, conflicting witness accounts, and global scrutiny, the legal battle has come to a climax. Judge Masipa begins her ruling by methodically dismantling the state's charge of premeditated murder. She explains that the prosecution failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Oscar intended to kill Reeva Steenkamp specifically. Instead, Masipa convicts him of culpable homicide, South Africa's equivalent of manslaughter. In her view, Pistorius acted negligently, but not with murderous intent. Her decision stuns the courtroom. Reeva's family sits in shocked silence. Outside, protesters hold signs that read, "Justice for Reeva." October 21, 2014. The sentence is handed down, 5 years in prison. Judge Masipa notes that a non-custodial sentence would send the wrong message to society. Still, many consider the sentence lenient. Prosecutor Jerry Nell immediately files for appeal. Meanwhile, Pistorius spends just under a year in prison before being released to house arrest in 2015, a move that sparks public outrage. But the story isn't over yet. In December 2015, South Africa's Supreme Court of Appeal overturns the original verdict, ruling that Pistorius should have foreseen his actions would result in death, even if he believed the person behind the door was an intruder. The court finds him guilty of murder. A new sentence follows in July 2016. 6 years in prison for murder. Once again, the prosecution appeals, arguing the sentence is shockingly lenient. Finally, in November 2017, Pistorius receives his final sentence. 13 years and 5 months in prison. Justice, many believe, has been delayed but not denied. A global icon, once celebrated for overcoming the odds, is now behind bars, and Reeva Steenkamp, a bright, compassionate woman with her whole future ahead of her, is gone. The verdict has been spoken, but the wounds it leaves behind, those will take much longer to heal. Chapter 6. Release on parole. It's the early morning of January 5th, 2024. After nearly 9 years behind bars, Oscar Pistorius walks out of Atteridgeville Correctional Centre in Pretoria. No press conference, no cameras allowed, just a man, once known to the world as the Blade Runner, now quietly stepping into a far less public life. His release had been anticipated. Parole was granted late the previous year, but when the day finally arrived, it still sent a ripple of emotion across South Africa and beyond. Many remembered the vibrant life of Reeva Steenkamp and wondered, was justice truly served? Pistorius, now 37, is released under the terms of South Africa's Correctional Services Act, which allows offenders to be considered for parole after serving half their sentence, provided certain conditions are met. He meets them, technically, but emotionally, ethically. That's where opinions sharply divide. Under parole, Pistorius is not a free man. He's living under strict conditions at his uncle's mansion in Pretoria. He's required to attend therapy sessions for anger management, perform community service, and he's prohibited from speaking to the media. Every step outside is monitored, every movement documented. His parole is set to last until December 2029, the end of his 13-year, 5-month sentence. But perhaps the most poignant voice in this moment belongs to June Steenkamp, Reeva's mother. She does not oppose the parole. She says she's accepted the justice system's process. But her words are heavy. Our lives will never be the same. We live with Reeva's loss every single day. For June and Barry Steenkamp, there is no closure, only endurance. Oscar Pistorius may be out of prison, but he will never escape what happened on that Valentine's morning in 2013. His name, once synonymous with hope and triumph, is now forever linked to a tragedy that silenced a young, compassionate woman's voice. Reeva's legacy lives on through advocacy, her foundation, and the global reckoning that followed her death. And as Oscar Pistorius re-enters society, one truth remains painfully clear. Some wounds never truly heal. Chapter 7. Closing Thoughts. What began as a story of triumph, of a boy who ran on blades and beat the odds, ended as one of the most tragic and high-profile criminal cases in modern history. Oscar Pistorius was once a symbol of human resilience, of limitless determination. His journey from a double amputee toddler to a record-breaking Olympian transcended sport. He was a global icon, an inspiration, but inspiration can fracture under pressure. The same fire that drove him to greatness may have also fueled the rage, the impulsivity, the inability to see past the red mist in a moment of crisis. And in that moment, on Valentine's Day, 2013, Reeva Steenkamp's life was taken. Reeva, a daughter, a model, a law graduate, a woman who spoke out against gender-based violence. She had dreams, compassion, brilliance. She was scheduled to give a talk at a high school about abuse the very day she died. That irony is as cruel as it is haunting. She never got to give that talk. But, in many ways, her death spoke volumes. It sparked national debate in South Africa about gun violence, about domestic abuse, about the way we view athletes and celebrities. It ignited conversations around justice, privilege, and who gets to be believed. And those conversations, even today, are far from over. Oscar Pistorius has served his time, at least in the eyes of the law, but can a sentence ever be long enough to equal a stolen life? Can remorse, no matter how genuine, ever rewrite history? For June and Barry Steenkamp, the grief is lifelong. They live without their daughter. No amount of media coverage, no parole hearing, no verdict can change that. But Reeva's story doesn't end in that bathroom. Her name lives on through advocacy work, through education, and through the Reeva Rebecca Steenkamp Foundation, an organisation fighting for justice, for safety, for dignity for women and children in South Africa. Because if there's anything we should take from this story, it's not just the fall of a hero, it's the enduring presence of the woman whose light was extinguished far too soon. This has been the story of Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp, a story of love, loss, and legacy. A tragedy that reminds us that behind the headlines are real people, real consequences, and real pain. Thank you for listening, and remember to subscribe to The Case Room for more true crime.